Hey, what's up? Ryan McCulloch here of Next Generation Music Sessions. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to play a Dorian scale all over your guitar. Coming up next. You should know to start out with that I have a very peculiar way of thinking about scales, which is that they are not contextless. They're related to chords in arpeggios. So when I practice new scales, I make sure that I already know the arpeggios and chords that go along with that so I can practice all of them together. That way, you become a scale master. So if you missed my last video on the Dorian scale, click this link right here and get caught up. The gist is that a Dorian scale is a minor scale, and it doesn't matter the notes that you use to play. You could play a scale starting on D and ending on D in the key of C major. And if the chord progression isn't a D Dorian chord progression, you're not playing in Dorian, the Dorian sound. The Dorian sound is a chord progression that comes from the D Dorian scale. So you can think that you're playing, for instance, a D Dorian scale over a C major chord progression, but that's not the case. Okay, time for new stuff. All right, I told you I have a very peculiar way of thinking of scales. I also have a lot of books, and I've read 98% of these books on this shelf, by the way. Anyway, you need to know, in order to play a D Dorian scale, is your arpeggio. So we're gonna start there. Arpeggio, a D minor arpeggio can look like this. Can also look like this. And it also strikingly looks like this delightful salad I don't know what I'm talking about. So, as you can see, one of the great things about the guitar is there are multiple ways of playing an arpeggio, which means there are multiple ways of playing the scale, which means we've got to practice more. Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? We got to practice more. Here we go. Now we're going to add notes to that D minor arpeggio, 2 notes in particular, and this will give us our D minor pentatonic scale, which will look like this. It can also look like this. And it might also look like this. The last step is to add 2 more notes. So if you noticed, we started with an arpeggio, which is 3 notes. We added 2 notes to it to get our pentatonic, which means 5 notes in a very ordered way. And then the final thing we're gonna do is add 2 other notes. And this is where we add the Dorian note, that B, that raised 6th. I can't even, it's such a beautiful sound, so wonderful, and you need to be hip to it. So this is how the scale can look. And here is another way. And this is the other way it can look. Who knew D Dorian had so many looks? So this is where a lot of people get to when they're starting to work on scales and arpeggios, which is, I know the scales and I memorize these finger patterns and then I try to play them as fast as possible. And that's cool. You need to have the technique and the ability to do that. But I would advocate making a little bit more music while you're practicing. Once you can play a couple of the scale, the arpeggio, and the pentatonic scale independently of one another, what I would start to do then is just to take a chord progression like D minor and G major. Start playing those sounds, right? The arpeggio sound, the pentatonic sound, and the scale sound. And it might look something like this. You're thinking, dude, how can I possibly begin to do that when I don't really improvising is difficult for me and it doesn't sound like your improvisation. And that's cool. You know why? Because you're gonna sound like you and I'm gonna sound like me and we're different people, and that is awesome. So one thing you can do to help out with your learning scales, arpeggios, improvisation exercises is to just keep simple ideas. And to use these simple ideas, I've come up with some strategies of structuring your improvisation or your melodies. And I put them in a video. Check it out right here. If you like this video, click the subscribe button below to stay up to date on our newest content.